So let's get started with JavaScript. JavaScript is a fully functional, very complex, sophisticated programming language. And you can do a lot of amazing things with it. For example, Gmail. If you've ever used Gmail's web interface, you're familiar with an application that's built largely in JavaScript, at least on the client side. Now, we're not going to get that sophisticated in this course, but we are going to have a look at the fundamentals of JavaScript, and we're going to use that along with some libraries like jQuery to add some really good functionality to our site. In order to do that, I'm in my Atom editor right now, and I'm going to create a simple empty HTML file that we can use just to get some of the basics down. So, in your Atom editor, go over to your course website folder on the left-hand side, choose New File, and let's call it js.html. So that's an empty file, and as we did last time, I'm going to go to the Packages menu, choose Snippets, Available Snippets, type HTML, and I want an HTML file. So this gives us a basic HTML file, and I'll give it a title called JavaScript. And now, at the very bottom, just before the closing body tag, I'm going to type a new HTML tag. And this is something that tells the web browser that what's between these tags should be executed as a script. We can put JavaScript outside of these tags, but it won't work. It'll just show up like regular text. But this tag, the script tag, hides it from the end user and tells the web browser that what's in between these tags is a script that should run. Now, really simple syntax. First of all, let's just do something so we can see something happen on the screen. I'm going to type in between those script tags, alert, followed by some parentheses, and then inside of that I'll put hello world. And at the very end of the line, when I'm finished, I'm going to type a semicolon. So that's all we have is alert between some script tags. Let's save this file, switch to our web browser, and see what happens. So I'm going to go to the File menu, choose Open File, and I'll find that js.html file I just created. When I open it, what should happen? Well, I open it, and a little dialog box pops up. Hello world, and it says JavaScript alert. Because I'm using Chrome, it has the Chrome logo here. And I click OK, and it goes away. And that's it. There's nothing else on the page. Now that makes perfect sense when you think about it, because if we go back to our HTML file, there's nothing between the body tags that's visible to the end user. So, not terribly useful. What might be more useful is if there was some way of, within the body of my HTML document, to make that hello world show up. Well, it turns out there is. So in here, I'm going to create a simple button. It's an open button tag, click me, a closing button tag. Now, without doing anything else, I'm going to save that, go back to my web browser, reload the page, and I know I'm going to see an alert, but let's see what else we see. So, I see my alert, and then I see a click me button. Now, clicking it does nothing, because I haven't assigned any action to that button. So let's go back to the Atom editor again, and see if we can make this do something. First of all, before I actually do anything to the button, I'm going to add a couple of lines to my script tag. I'm going to start just in front of the alert or above the alert, typing function, click me, then some parentheses, then an open curly bracket. And then I'll click below the alert and put a closing double bracket. If it lets me type one, there we go. And I'll format this a little better just so I can see it. So I've now wrapped that alert in something called a function. And a function is just a bit of script that I can call from other places. So now I'm going to go back up to this button tag, and I'm going to make this button actually call that script. And I do it by typing a little indicator. On click equals, and then in quotes, click me. Exactly as it appears in the function name. So I'm going to save that, go back, and now there'll be a slight difference when I reload the page this time. The last time I reloaded it, it popped up that alert saying hello world. But this time when I reload it, it doesn't do that. And it doesn't do that because the alert function is itself wrapped in a function called click me. But when I click on the button, that alert pops up. Okay, well that's pretty simple. Let's go back and make it a little more complex. This time, I'm going to pass an argument to that function, a parameter. So up here where I have the onClickMe, onClick equals clickMe, I'm going to put in single quotes, hello world again. Now it's passing a parameter to that function. So if I actually go back and reload the page and try to click that button, it still says hello world. It's ignoring that parameter. But if I come down here in the function itself and give that parameter a name, and I'm just going to call it x, okay? Now, what's up here in the clickMe function, hello world again, is a string, a series of characters that's being passed to this function. And I can actually, you do something with it. So here, where I'm saying alert hello world, I'm going to put a space before the closing quotation mark. Then I'm going to hit a plus sign and type X. And when I save that and go back, here's what I'm expecting to happen. This clickMe function will be called with the value hello world again. It'll pass that function to clickMe down here in the script tag. And then I'm going to alert hello world, followed by a space. And then I'm going to add what I passed, and that's currently stored in the variable x, to the alert. So I should see hello world space hello world again. Let's see if that happens. I'll go back to my web browser, reload it, click me, and I get hello world again. Exactly what I hoped to see. So far, so good. Well, let's see what else we can make JavaScript do. What I'm going to do next is create another button right below this one that calls a different function. So let's see how this might work. I put a couple of blank lines in just so we can see what we're doing, and now I'm going to put a couple of line breaks in just to make this button visually separated from the other one. So I'll create the button. I'm going to give it an onClick handler, and that handler is going to call the JavaScript function clickMe2. And then I'll give it a label, and the label will be clickMe2, and close my button tag. So this is okay so far, but you'll notice that I've actually called a JavaScript function, I forgot the parentheses, called a JavaScript function that does not yet exist. So let's go down here and make that function. Function clickMe2, and that doesn't take any parameters, so I can leave the parentheses empty. Give it the opening and closing curly brackets. And now what do I want this to do? Well, I'll tell you what I want it to do. I want, when someone clicks on the Click Me To button, I want some text to appear on the page. And it has to appear somewhere. So how am I going to do that? Well, let's put an empty div tag in here. And this div tag is where I want the text to appear. Well, that sounds pretty easy so far. But how am I going to tell JavaScript where on the page I want the text to show up? Well, I need to give this div something unique, something that differentiates it from all the other elements on a web page. And we call that an ID. Now I'm going to give this an ID of change me. I can call it whatever I want. It just has to be unique. You can't have two IDs with the same name anywhere on a web page, but I'm going to call this one change me. So now I need to actually write the code that will put the text inside the change me div. And it turns out JavaScript gives us some functionality that allows us to do exactly that. And it's a pretty simple syntax once you get used to it. It goes like this. Document get element by ID, the name of the ID that I want, in this case it's change me, inner HTML equals, and then some text. This is my text. So if I save that, let's think about what this is going to do. The first word is document, and all that means is in the current HTML document, this entire document, in that document I want to get an element by ID. Well, there's only one element in this document with the ID of change me, and that matches what we're looking for. And we're going to set its inner HTML, the contents of the change me div, to whatever text I put right here. Seems all right so far. Let's give it a whirl. Back over to our web browser. I reload the content. Let's make sure the first button still works, and it does. And now let's try the second button. And it does exactly what I want it to do. And we could even make that a little more complex. Let's just reload this to get it blank again. Go back to our HTML, and this time let's pass it a parameter. So up here I'm saying click me to. I'm going to put some text in here. I was clicked. And since we have down here, we can actually change this and say, this is a variable. We're going to accept a parameter. So x, we'll call it x. We can call it whatever we want, but x is fine. And rather than hard coding the text in here, I can just set it to x. So let's go back, reload the page, try the first button, it works. Try the second button, I was clicked. That's very good. But there's one thing you might have noticed about this, and it is down here in the clickMe2 function, it actually says inner HTML. That means I don't need to just pass text. I can actually pass HTML. So if I was to, for example, wrap this in an HTML tag, and here's a new one you haven't seen before, strong, a beginning tag, and an ending tag, strong. Now I'm actually passing HTML as a parameter, not just plain old text, but something with HTML tags. Let's see if that works. I'll go back here, reload the page. First button still works, good. Does the second button work? Well, what should happen when I click this is I should see the text that I passed, but this time it should be wrapped in a strong parameter. Let's see what that does. It bolds the text. Well, that's pretty straightforward. Now, this is a really brief introduction to JavaScript, but I wanted to get the concept of functions out of the way before we go back to our register form and write some JavaScript that validates the data that the user enters. And that's what we'll do next.